The cold wind screamed across the mountain as the sun dropped fast behind the peaks of Colorado. High above the tree line, where the air is thin and every step hurts, a woman stood alone. Her legs were weak. Her breath came in short gasps. Around her was nothing but rock, snow patches, and steep drops that fell hundreds of feet into silence. She watched as the man she had climbed with grew smaller in the distance, moving upward without her. She was alive in that moment, but she would never come down from that mountain. Hours later, darkness swallowed the trail. The mountain became a trap of shadows and sharp stone. Somewhere high on Mount of the Holy Cross, Michelle Vanek vanished. What happened next would remain a mystery for nearly 20 years, leaving one haunting question behind. Was she simply lost, or was she left behind when she needed help the most? No one heard her scream. No phone call was made. No rescue came that night. And by morning, Michelle was gone. But this story did not begin on the mountain. It began months earlier, with plans, excitement, and trust. Michelle Vanek was a 35-year-old mother of 4. She loved the outdoors and had climbed difficult trails before. She was strong, active, and proud of pushing herself. In September 2005, she planned to climb up Mount of the Holy Cross, one of Colorado's most famous and dangerous 14,000-foot peaks. It was not a casual hike. The trail was long, steep, and unforgiving, even for skilled hikers. She did not go alone. She climbed with a man she knew and trusted, a family friend who had hiking experience. The plan was simple. They would climb together, reach the summit if possible, and return before dark. Nothing about that plan suggested death. Early that morning, they started the hike. The weather was clear but cold. The trail twisted through forest, then opened into wide rocky slopes. As they climbed higher, the air grew thinner. Each step became harder. The mountain demanded focus and strength. Hours passed. Their pace slowed. Near the upper part of the mountain, Michelle began to struggle. Her legs felt heavy. Her breathing became painful. She told her hiking partner she could not keep going. She needed to stop. This was the moment everything changed. According to later statements, the man made a decision. He continued toward the summit alone. Michelle was told to wait where she was. He believed she would rest and remain there until he returned. She stayed behind on a high, exposed section of the mountain, alone, above the clouds, with night coming. When the man returned to the spot where he said he left her, Michelle was gone. Panic set in. He searched and called out her name, but there was no answer. The mountain gave nothing back. As darkness closed in, he was forced to descend and report her missing. By the next day, search and rescue teams flooded the area. Helicopters flew overhead. Volunteers combed the slopes. Dogs followed scent trails that led nowhere. The mountain refused to give up its secret. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into years. No body was found. No gear was recovered. No clear answers emerged. Some believed Michelle became confused and wandered off the trail. Others believed she slipped and fell into one of the many steep couloirs hidden by shadows. And some quietly asked a harder question. Was she simply lost, or was she left behind when she needed help the most?
Should she have ever been left alone that high on the mountain in the first place? Her children grew up without answers. Her family waited. The mountain stayed silent. Then, almost 20 years later, something unexpected happened. In a remote, dangerous area far from where search teams had focused, volunteers discovered human remains. The clothing, the gear, and the location told a chilling story. It was Michelle. But the position of her body raised new questions. She was not where experts believed she should have been. The terrain suggested a fall, but how she ended up there was still unclear. and the decision made high on that mountain to keep climbing while she stayed behind came under renewed scrutiny. As investigators studied the scene and families searched for closure, one question echoed louder than ever. What really happened in Michelle Vanek's final moments on that Colorado mountain? The moment Michelle Vanek was reported missing, the quiet beauty of the Colorado mountains turned into a place of fear and urgency. Sirens echoed through nearby towns. Search and rescue teams rushed toward Mount of the Holy Cross, knowing every minute mattered. High-altitude rescues are a race against time, weather, and exhaustion, and this mountain was known for taking lives. Helicopters lifted off before sunrise, their blades cutting through the thin air. Ground teams hiked for hours, scanning cliffs, snowfields, and narrow paths where one wrong step could mean death. Dogs followed scent trails that faded into nothing. Searchers called Michelle's name again and again, but only the wind answered. Her hiking partner told investigators the same story from the beginning. Michelle had become too tired to continue. She had told him she could not go on. He said he believed she would wait safely while he climbed to the summit and returned. He insisted he never meant to abandon her. In his mind, it was a temporary separation, not a final goodbye. But the mountain did not care about intentions. Search leaders faced a terrifying truth. If Michelle had moved from where she was left, she could be anywhere. The terrain was filled with steep slopes, loose rock, and hidden drop-offs. A single misstep could send a person tumbling hundreds of feet. If she had fallen, her body could be hidden in deep chutes or buried by snow. Days passed with no sign of her. Family members arrived, standing helplessly at the trailhead, watching strangers risk their lives to find someone they loved. Michelle's children waited for news that never came. Each day ended the same way, with empty hands and broken hope. After weeks of searching, officials made a painful decision. The active search was scaled back. They had to accept the possibility that Michelle might never be found. The mountain kept its secret. Years went by. Seasons changed. Snow covered the slopes and melted again. Hikers passed through the same trails, unaware that somewhere above them, a woman had vanished without a trace. Michelle's case slowly faded from headlines, but it never faded from the hearts of those who loved her. Yet questions never stopped. Some people believed Michelle became disoriented due to altitude sickness. Others thought she may have tried to descend alone, hoping to find safety, only to slip and fall. And then there were those who focused on the moment she was left behind. Was it reasonable to leave someone alone at that height? Should the climb have ended when she could not continue? Was it a tragic mistake or a reckless decision? No charges were filed, no crime was officially declared, but the doubt lingered, heavy and uncomfortable. Then, almost 20 years later, the mountain spoke. In 2024, a group of experienced volunteers returned to Mount of the Holy Cross. These were people who knew the terrain well, people who believed something had been missed. They searched areas that were too dangerous to explore back in 2005. Steep couloirs, narrow rock channels, places where a body could remain hidden for decades. What they found stopped them cold. Human remains lay in a remote section of the mountain, far from where search teams had focused years earlier. Nearby were pieces of hiking gear worn down by time and weather. The clothing, the gear, and the location told a chilling story. It was Michelle.
After careful recovery and testing, the truth was confirmed. The remains were Michelle Vanek. For her family, the discovery was both devastating and relieving. After nearly 20 years of not knowing, they finally had an answer. But that answer brought new pain. The location of her body raised troubling questions. She was not near the spot where she was reportedly left. The terrain suggested a fall, possibly from a great height. Investigators believed she may have slipped while moving across dangerous ground.
But why she was there at all remained unclear. Did she try to follow her partner? Did she panic as night approached? Did she believe help would come from above instead of below? The man who climbed with her was never charged. Authorities stated there was no evidence of a crime, but public debate returned with force. Some defended his decision, saying the mountain is unpredictable and accidents happen. Others argued that leaving a struggling partner alone at such altitude was a deadly choice. Michelle's final moments remain unknown. What is known is this: she was alive when she was left alone. She was never seen again, and the mountain held her story for nearly 20 years before giving her back. But the most disturbing part was still ahead, because investigators now faced one final question: not how Michelle died, but whether her death could have been prevented. The discovery of Michelle Vanek's remains did not bring the peace many expected. Instead, it reopened old wounds and created new ones. The mountain had finally given her back, but it did not give answers. For investigators, rescuers, and her family, the case now felt unfinished. Experts studied the location where Michelle was found. It was steep, narrow, and dangerous. One wrong step there could send a person sliding or falling without any chance to stop. This supported the idea of an accidental fall, but one detail stood out. To reach that spot, Michelle would have had to move far from where she was last known to be waiting. Why would she go there? Investigators considered several possibilities. Maybe she grew afraid as the sun went down and tried to descend on her own. Maybe she believed following the trail upward would lead her back to her partner. Or maybe confusion set in. At high altitude, the brain does not work the same. Simple choices can turn deadly. The mountain offered no proof, only silence. Public attention returned to the case, and so did judgment. Online forums filled with arguments. Some people said no hiker should ever be left alone at that height, no matter the reason. Others said experienced adults make their own choices, and the mountain is always a risk. Michelle's family did not speak in anger. They spoke in grief. They said they would never know what she felt in her final hours: fear, hope, trust, or regret. What hurt the most was the time, nearly 20 years stolen by not knowing. Rescue experts weighed in as well. Many said the safest decision would have been to turn back together the moment Michelle could not continue. Mountains do not reward ambition, they punish it. One choice can change everything. Still, the law remained clear. No crime was charged, no one was arrested. The case stayed in a gray area where tragedy and responsibility overlap but never fully meet. And that gray area is what makes this story so unsettling. Because Michelle did not die instantly. Evidence suggested she may have moved after being left. That means there were moments, maybe minutes, maybe hours, where survival was still possible. Moments where a different choice might have changed the ending. Her children, now adults, carry that thought with them. The mountain still stands. Hikers still climb it, and every year people make decisions high above the tree line, not knowing how fast everything can go wrong. Michelle Vanek's story is not just about a fall. It is about a moment when someone stayed behind and another kept going. It is about trust placed in a dangerous place, and it is about how silence can last longer than life itself. But one final chapter remains. Because while the mountain may never speak again, the question it left behind refuses to fade. Was Michelle's death an unavoidable accident, or did one decision seal her fate long before she fell? The mountain did not change after Michelle Vanek's story returned to the public. Snow still fell,
Wind still howled through the narrow paths. Hikers still stood at the trailhead, full of confidence, believing skill and planning could protect them. But for those who knew the case, Mount of the Holy Cross now carried a heavier meaning. Investigators closed their files once more. The final ruling remained the same. Michelle died from a fall in dangerous terrain. No criminal charges, no courtroom answers. Just an ending written by stone, gravity, and time. Yet for many, that ending felt incomplete.
Because this case was never only about how she died. It was about the moment before. High on that mountain, Michelle told her partner she could not go on. She was tired. The climb was too much. That was the moment when two paths appeared. One led upward toward the summit. The other led back down toward safety. The choice made in that thin air still echoes today. Some say the decision was a mistake, not a crime. Others say it was a failure of responsibility. The law draws its lines carefully, but mountains do not. They do not care about intent. They only respond to action. Michelle's family chose remembrance over blame. They spoke of her strength, her love for her children, and her joy for life. They asked people to learn from her story, not argue over it, to never leave someone behind in a place where help cannot reach quickly, to respect the mountain even when pride whispers to keep going. Today, a quiet warning lives in this case. It is not written on signs or carved into rock. It exists in the space between two people on a trail, in the moment when one slows down and the other pulls ahead. Michelle Vanek did not come home. Her story ended on a cold, silent slope far above the world below. But the question her death left behind still follows every climber who steps into dangerous heights. When someone can no longer continue, do you keep going or do you turn back together? Some stories end with answers. Others end with questions that never fade. High on that Colorado mountain, one decision changed everything, and the silence that followed still speaks today.